I am an American. Listen to my words. Listen well. For my country is a strong country.
Thanks to all my helpers. About a dozen folks are helping with the planning, and we hope that this program will entertain you, make you think and reflect, and also make you take action. First, some housekeeping issues. The bathrooms are open. They are in that brick building that I'm pointing to now. Please use the trash cans for trash, and we do recycle. Children can sit and partake in fun crafts at our craft table in the back. The program is essentially in two parts. We are giving extra time to our immigration attorneys when they arrive. And we have some elected officials and candidates for office that also will be speaking. We have some dance performances and musical performances scheduled. An interfaith gathering of representatives of a variety of faiths will speak and pray right around 8:15 to 8:45. And at that time we'll have our candlelight vigil. We prefer that you use electric candles or a flashlight, or there's actually an app you can download on your phone. It shows a flickering candle. Around the building you will find tables with information about groups that you can engage in if you want to continue our theme. You can also register to vote here and sign up to help lobby on Capitol Hill. There are pamphlets with immigrants' rights and other information available as well. Check it out. Traffic being what it is in Prince William County, we will stop the speakers and performances in as they can and as folks arrive. Some speakers have several events to go to tonight. We're going to start with Helen Suraita.
Especially with the race coming up this weekend, I wanted to make sure that people knew their rights, and I also want to make sure that they know that we are united in helping them. What I saw yesterday on the news with AOC speaking, showing a video of a mother who lost her child due to a preventable lung infection at the border. After that child left the center because of negligence of our own government, that child died. How many more children are going to die due to our government's negligence? We have to come united as one. It doesn't matter what party you belong to. This country belongs to everyone. Immigrants, in one thing, and that's democracy. I want to speak a little bit in Spanish for the people that don't speak English here. I want to let them know that I'm here to help them. If I can't help you personally, I have a lot of connections in the city and in the state to get you what you need. Mi nombre es Suzanne Nadeau. Yo soy una de aquí en Manassas City, Manassas, part of Pennsylvania County. Yo estoy aquí por ayudarles. Allá atrás hay un papel con mi nombre y mi información por ayudar. Que si cosa necesita, por favor, llámame día y noche. Yo estoy con mi teléfono. Hay mucha gente latina aquí en Manassas que está ayudando ahora. Por favor, no van a poner atrás. Que si cosa, por favor, llámame. Thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank Elisabet so much for this beautiful program. It's nationwide, but knowing that my city, my state, and my county of Pennsylvania County is standing up for these immigrants. Please remember the children's names that are laid out here. We cannot afford our democracy to keep going down like this. We need to close those camps. We need to reunite between mothers and children and their families. And we need to just make sure that the asylum seekers coming across this border get the chance to apply for that assignment. It's their right and it's an American duty for us to allow them to do that. Thank you.
In parts of Western Pennsylvania County. And I wish we didn't have to do this today. I wish we weren't in the moment in history that we're in. We face a crisis not only here in the United States, but across the world, of the far right on the rise, just like we saw during the Great Depression. There are governments across the world, including the US government, who are scapegoating people, demonizing people, and saying the problems in your economic life are because of those others. Our president says that the problems in people's day-to-day lives are because of LGBT folks and immigrants. But we know, if we look at history, that that is completely false, and it is the most dangerous rhetoric possibly used in times like this. We know that that sort of rhetoric leads to people being killed. We know that that sort of rhetoric led, during the Great Depression, during World War II, to the United States government operating concentration camps for Japanese Americans. And it leads us to where we are today, where the United States government is again operating racially based concentration camps. And they can say it's about law and order, but that's the excuse that is always used when a government goes after its most vulnerable, when a government decides that it doesn't care about the lives of its residents. That's where we are today. We have people confined in standing room only conditions, drinking out of toilets, because they had the audacity to flee violence in their home countries and come here to try to be safe. And let's not forget that that violence is often caused by the foreign policy of our own government.
That's right.
It's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing to pick up and leave the only home you've ever known. You don't do it lightly. You don't do it unless your home is completely untenable for you to stay in. You don't do it because you want to. You do it because you have to. And we've decided that not only are we going to make it unacceptable and impossible for people to stay where they were born and raised, but when they get here, we're going to make sure that the road here kills as many of them as possible. And if they do make it across that road, if they do make it to this side of the Rio Grande, we've decided to put them in concentration camps. We don't care if they live or die. A lot of people get on that case about using the term concentration camps. They say, oh, you can't use that term unless it's an extermination camp like we saw in Nazi Germany. But just because there's no gas chambers doesn't make it not a concentration camp. I remind you all that Anne Frank did not die of gas poisoning, she died of typhus. Look at those names. of children who died in concentration camps in the United States of America in the 21st century, just like Anne Frank died of disease in a concentration camp in Germany in the 1940s. It is unacceptable. And anyone who looks around at this moment and decides to do nothing is collaborating. Anyone who looks around in this moment and decides to do nothing is just as culpable as the people who put those children in cages in the first place. And that's not a partisan thing. I was shocked and disturbed today with a vote in the U.S. House of Representatives. There was an amendment by Representative Ocasio-Cortez to prevent the president from using troops on the border. And predictably, almost all of the Republicans voted against it. But so did 52 Democrats, including Elaine Luria, Abigail Spanberger, and my representative, Liza. They chose to collaborate with the people who are putting children in concentration camps. It's unacceptable. I won't stand for it. Neither should any of you. Because, ladies and gentlemen, never again is right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hassan. I am an immigration attorney. I really should say citizenship attorney, because an immigrant is an aspiring American. And I am tired, and I am sick of the rhetoric that has been spewed out by not just this administration, but previous administrations on the human dignity of those who try to come to our shores and become a part of our society. Now, y'all might not know this, but I've practiced immigration law for the past 16 years. And in that time, I have seen program after program. What we are seeing at the border today, and in the last few months, and in the past 2 years, has actually been going on for quite some time.
Right.
It has been going on for too long.
Right.
It has been going on. These policies did not just appear overnight. I have a lawsuit pending against the University of Michigan right now to unseal the papers of a man named Dr. John Tanton. Has anyone heard his name before? Show of hands, John Tanton. You have?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly the way he wanted it. He wanted no one to know his name. He's a shadowy figure and the founder of the Federation for American Immigration Reform. In 1979, he started this organization, and in 1993 or 1994, he wrote to one of his compatriots that he had come to the idea, the realization, or the belief that the United States had to retain a Euro-American majority in order to maintain its national identity. And then he wrote, and a clear one at that. Is it any wonder to any of you as to why every single policy that we have seen this administration and previous administrations, I'm not going to let anybody off the hook, is it any wonder that every single one of these policies has disproportionately affected people of color? January 28, 2017, I was on the ground at Dulles Airport when they rolled out the first Muslim ban. It is still going on today. Within a few weeks, we saw ramped up deportations and ramped up ICE raids in the interior of the country. So either keep them out or kick them out. After that, we started seeing countries on the temporary protected status or TPS list drop off one by one. Haiti, Nepal, and they tried to do it with El Salvador and Honduras and Nicaragua as well. What's different now, and what makes it different and why this is a time for us to take action, is because now people's attention is focused on this injustice. Make no mistake about it. The policies that we are seeing are rooted in nothing more than white nationalism. They are rooted in white nationalism, and white nationalism has no place in our immigration policy. None. I've tried my best to spend some time and to write about and to let people know about what's going on the border from my own experiences. I've spent time in Tijuana, I've spent time in Texas, I've spent time at the border advising asylum seekers. I had 2 in my office just today who crossed not more than 3 weeks ago. In 1994, he wrote to one of his compatriots that he had come to the idea, the realization, or the belief that the United States had to retain a Euro-American majority in order to maintain its national identity. And then he wrote, and a clear one at that. Is it any wonder to any of you as to why every single policy that we have seen this administration and previous administrations, I'm not going to let anybody off the hook, is it any wonder that every single one of these policies has disproportionately affected people of color? January 28, 2017, I was on the ground at Dulles Airport when they rolled out the first Muslim ban. It is still going on today. Within a few weeks, we saw ramped up deportations and ramped up ICE raids in the interior of the country. So either keep them out or kick them out. After that, we started seeing countries on the temporary protected status or TPS list drop off one by one. Haiti, Nepal, and they tried to do it with El Salvador and Honduras and Nicaragua as well. What's different now, and what makes it different and why this is a time for us to take action, is because now people's attention is focused on this injustice. Make no mistake about it. The policies that we are seeing are rooted in nothing more than white nationalism. They are rooted in white nationalism, and white nationalism has no place in our immigration policy. None. Define who we are as Americans. Our country has always been a beacon of freedom and a beacon for people who are trying to flee oppression in whatever shape it may take. That is the highest ideal of being American. It is what I've devoted the entirety of my professional career to, and we're going to continue to do that, and we're not going anywhere. Thank you all for the time to be able to address you all today. I'm happy to stick around. Show up. That's where the social change is going to happen. It's not going to happen any other way. Thank you all for showing up, and God bless America.
My name is Liza Johnson-Firth. I'm an immigration attorney right around the corner from here on Church Street. I've been practicing immigration law since 2002, and most of it has been in this county. We know better than anyone what oppressive laws can do to a community. And my colleague had mentioned FAIR, the Federation of Immigration Reform. Those laws were tested out in our very own Prince William County. We were the precursor to Arizona SB 1070 law, and noticed the dramatic effect it had on our community in 2008. Part of our housing crash was a direct result of our immigration policies. So what's happening at the border has happened in our own local community, and we know better than anyone the importance of protecting due process and rights, because we had that very debate play out here. We were debating with the police about what probable cause was and who has the right to stop someone just based on the color of their skin, their accent, the clothing that they were wearing, and whether a police officer could arrest someone based on that indicia that they may be here in violation of immigration laws. So I want to kind of backtrack a little bit to explain how did we get here in the first place, especially in this area in Prince William County. We're 30% foreign born. what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna let the train pass. Issues that we have. And shouldn't all these immigrants just go back to their country because they're just coming for jobs? I would say that a fair number of immigrants in the past certainly have come for jobs. But in my recent years of practice, most of the people that I interview on a daily basis have come to the United States for no other reason than the sheer violence and terror that they live through on a daily basis of being targeted by gangs. And those gangs have their origin in the United States. So back in everywhere from the 1950s to the 1980s, the United States was directly involved in civil wars in Latin American countries. We are part of the reason why we have the migration issues that we have. We were involved in propping up governments that tortured and disappeared their own citizens, particularly in a country like Guatemala. 200,000 people were disappeared. In El Salvador, hundreds of thousands of people displaced as a result of civil war that we were involved in to protect our own capitalist interests and economy. As a result, people fled to the United States seeking asylum. They were denied asylum until there was a class action lawsuit that granted asylum, but that was years later. In the meantime, we deported thousands of people back to countries that were torn apart by war, no infrastructure, no jobs, no safety net, nothing except for gangs to develop in a vacuum of a lost society. Those gangs now control the Northern Triangle countries. They are the most dangerous countries in the world. Honduras, El Salvador, the crime statistics are incredible. And not just drive-by shooting, torture. The rent that people are obligated to pay on a weekly or even daily basis. No money to live, and if they don't pay, they will be killed. Their children will be trafficked. That is why we have the migration crisis at the border. If it was just about jobs, it's unlikely that we would see the continual flow of migrants that we have. In every respect, the people that are at our borders are refugees. They should be defined under UN law and international law and US law as refugees, and they are entitled to claim asylum. Asylum is a process by which any person who has fear of return to their country on the basis of persecution, they will not be protected by their government because of a particular characteristic that they hold. They are entitled to claim asylum. What this administration is doing is directly interfering with the due process rights of foreign nationals being entitled to claim asylum under Article 14 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. So, the most recent example of this is the migrant protection protocols that is basically the stay in Mexico. If you're lucky, you'll get a credible fear interview, and after you pass a credible fear interview, you're sent back to Mexico. It was interesting, just the other day on NPR, there was an immigration judge that was interviewed. I don't know if you heard it. It was a great interview. And she was talking about the due process violation of this stay in Mexico policy. We're a nation of laws and due process. That's the very foundation of what this country was formed over. And yet, we are denying these persons who are required to stay in Mexico while they wait for an asylum hearing in the United States access to lawyers. If you don't have a lawyer in the asylum process, it's highly likely that you're going to lose and you're going to be deported to your death. In fact, there was an article in the Washington Post in December about one of our Arlington immigration judges, who's actually a good judge, that a man that he had denied asylum to was deported back to Honduras and within a week or two was killed. What's really interesting is that his children are still in an asylum process in Arlington, and hopefully they'll be more successful based on their father's death. It's clear that the family was going to be tortured and killed. So this is what these people are facing. Without lawyers, they're just going to be deported back to their deaths. In addition, it's putting a hardship on the immigration judges themselves, because when you don't have clients who are represented by lawyers, the judges have a higher burden to make sure that this person is obtaining the due process that they're entitled to. It takes a judge longer to explain, here's your asylum application that you need to fill out, and do you understand everything? And give that person time to find a lawyer, even though it's unlikely that they will. So what's happening with our administration in many different levels is every conceivable way under the law and outside of the law to deny people their due process rights. Whether it's by detaining them in conditions that makes them want to just self-deport, or keeping them in Mexico where they can be tortured, raped, persecuted while they wait for their hearings and they have no access to a lawyer. Or whether it's separating children and families. There was a case, Dora v. Sessions, where thank God for some of the courts, there was a case that basically recognized how can a parent pass a credible fear interview when their main concern is separation from their child. And it's impossible to answer questions like, well, why did you come to the United States? And what do you fear when you return if you haven't seen your child for 2 months and your child was forcibly taken from you? I was at the border last summer at the Parents Detention Facility just as they were reuniting families. And I interviewed parents and their children who had been separated. And I heard the stories about how parents literally would have infants ripped. Think about and pressure our representatives to enforce asylum law. We were a signatory to the UN protocols to establish asylum. Our 1980 Refugee Act made asylum law our national law in this country. We're a country of laws and due process. We need to honor our own legal system. And third, we need to respect the integrity and human rights and dignity of all persons, and especially the right of a family to stay together. And under our current legal system, that's absolutely impossible to do after Jeff Sessions brought in the zero-tolerance policy last year. This whole family separation issue really blew up last year after the zero-tolerance of, well, we're going to detain everybody. Forcing that policy is what created the family separation, and there's still hundreds, maybe thousands of children who are still separated. So, if you have any questions, I always try to make myself available to the public. I'm right around the corner, and I wish you Godspeed in all your actions and advocacy to make important changes, and most of all, to educate your community on these issues. Thank you.
Evelyn BruMar, and what I want to do is I want to tell you a story first. Te quiero decir una historia primero. Te quiero decir qué pasó el último año cuando fui a San Diego and Tijuana border. I want to tell you that what I did last year in May when I went to the San Diego-Tijuana border. I was here in Virginia and I saw on the news a caravan of people coming to the border seeking asylum. And I was thinking to myself, who's going to greet them when all the language out there is negative and unwelcoming? And they're hearing it from our president, and they're hearing it from our vice president. Who's going to greet them? Who's going to help them? They've traveled thousands of miles, and what's going to happen to them? Are they going to get arrested? Are they going to get a fair chance? Are their stories going to be heard? So I personally went into my savings, and I bought an airplane ticket last minute, flew to San Diego. I work with Border Angels and Pueblos Sin Fronteras, on the San Diego side and the Tijuana side. And I helped raise money, and I helped get water and clothing so that we can give it to the people who are coming on the Tijuana side. Because they were coming there tired, thirsty, hungry, and they were having to stay at the border. So I did the watch. How many are you military? You know what standing the watch is, right? I stood the watch. I stood there to make sure that they weren't mugged, that they weren't harassed, raped, or molested, the children were molested, because I value their lives. Being a first-generation American, my mom is from Sinaloa, from Mexico. I watched the treatment she got. for not being able to speak English, for her skin being dark. I saw her get spat on. I saw her get harassed. And it traumatized me as a child watching that happen to my mother. I can only imagine what's happening to the children and the parents and that were coming to the border. Then I worked on the San Diego side, and I made sure that the only sanctuary location in San Diego was available to take in people after they got out of ICE custody. There was not enough clothing, there was not enough food in their pantries, so I fundraised. I reached out to my friends here in Virginia, I reached out to my friends in San Diego, I reached out to friends all over this nation, because in the military, when you do the watch and you serve with them, they're your family. They have your back and you have theirs. The minimum we can do is lead with love and be an example. The ultimate thing we can do is put ourselves in a position of risk to protect others who don't even have a voice. And you being here is the first step in showing your humanity.
In the Potomac District. As one of my close friends just articulated, I'm sad that we even have to be here and that we are at this point in our nation's history. So, what I want to leave you with more than anything in my words to you tonight is a call for further action. There can be no rush, there can be no peace while we have children still locked in cages. I want to thank Elisabet Michaelsen and the ladies from Indivisible NOVA West for organizing this event. I want to thank all of you who are in attendance. I want to thank everyone who's joining us via Facebook Live, because that's the first step in bringing an end to this atrocity that's being committed under the name of this country and the Constitution. As we know, as Prince William goes, so goes the nation. We are the leaders and values that uplift humanity and celebrate diversity. We know that when diversity is threatened, it hurts all of us, and we are not a better society for it. What I urge you to do is to keep going. I know you're here, and it's great, and many of you are still involved, but we have tons of work to do before those children are delivered. I urge you to keep marching, keep advocating. Engage your elected officials. Push them to get rid of these policies that have abused these children and separated families. And as we say, if we can't change their mind, we will change their seats. Additionally, we want to make sure that we are not supporting policies or policies are not happening under our noses that are being ignored that threaten immigration right here in Prince William County. The 287G policy must be gotten rid of immediately. We have local candidates that are on the ballot this year that we need to support so that we can get rid of that policy that also threatens families and rips them apart. So, as I leave you, again, I thank everyone for your activism so far. And as I said before, Prince William is the leader of this nation in turning policies around and changing attitudes and shifting ideas. So thank you again. And at that, I will introduce my good friend Joseph George, who's going to come with a few words for you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, and tribe members. My name is Joseph George. I'm the candidate for the school board of the National Magisterial District of Prince William County. But I am here as a grandson of an Irish immigrant, and I'm a father of 3 girls of Mexican lineage. As a father, things that's most important to me is to ensure that my daughters feel safe and sound. That is something that is not happening for thousands of children in this county and across this country. That is ridiculous that the greatest country in the world would allow children to be scared on a daily basis. Children are afraid to go to school for fear of either having a dark-cladded man outside of their door when they open it, or even worse, when they return home from school, there is no one in the house. Fear for our children and fear of children is something that I cannot stand for. Full-time, I actually work for the Department of Defense as an analyst. And a lot of the reports that I get to read is further proof that the information that's coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is ridiculous, it's wrong, and it's lies. Ultimately, as adults, it is our responsibility to provide the best environment and the best situation for all children that are within our borders. That includes those that are coming here for fear of persecution, fear of death, coming to the United States for a better life. There is no reason on why.
I'm trying to keep myself together here. I'm a juvenile defense attorney. I'm not an immigration attorney. I work with kids. I work with kids who are delinquent, kids who are abused, abandoned, neglected, kids who are in need of services. A large portion of the children that I work with are the ones who have survived the camps. Many of the children that I represent, of course, are undocumented. They have made their way here due to the fear of violence in their home country. They come to my office after having survived unspeakable violence. They come to this country seeking safety, and when they arrive here, they are further traumatized. By the time they arrive to my office, they are completely emotionless. You can see it in their eyes. They've suffered so much. My job is to represent them and help them get special immigrant juvenile status. And I do that by bringing them before the court, explaining their stories and telling their stories to our judges and asking our judges to give them the orders that they need to take to immigration court to help them regularize their status and become citizens. During their travels, they tell me the stories of not only what has happened to them in their hometown, but what happens to them when they actually make the journey to the United States. Many of these children are kidnapped and held for ransom. Some are raped. Some are sold to traffickers. Why would a mother or father take that risk in sending their child to cross from Mexico with those risks? I hope that I'm never in a position to have to make that decision for my kids. I hope that you aren't either. I know that I would probably do just about anything to save my kids, so I understand where these parents are coming from. Then these children are brought here, they turn themselves into immigration authorities, and they are promptly thrown into giant meat lockers. Their belongings are taken from them. They are not permitted any basic hygiene items. If they are wet, they are not given dry clothes. They become sick and have no access to medical attention. They're held in big freezing rooms with little more than the clothes on their backs and a Mylar blanket, just like you see in the photos. They are forced to sleep on concrete floors where the lights shine 24/7. They wake in the middle of the night with hunger pains. I've been hearing stories of the freezing detention centers for over a year now, just like you've heard from the two immigration attorneys that spoke before me. This is not new. but the conditions are getting much worse. It's horrifying. The guards are becoming desensitized to the human suffering. They do not see these children as human. What are we doing? Tonight, you're going to hear stories of the children that have been separated from their families. You're going to hear stories of children caring for children. You're going to hear stories of children with no diapers and a father who can't even wash his baby's bottle. Please listen, because these are real stories. These are real reports of real children, no different than the children that we have at home. They're just not lucky enough to have been born here. You've seen the photo of Oscar Ramirez and his 2-year-old little girl. Their faces down in the water, her arm through his shirt with her little hand peeking up through the neckline. It's an image that I cannot unsee and that should shake every single one of you to your very core. Don't look away. Crimes against humanity are being committed in the name of our country. I'm an American and I will not stand for it. I hope you will not stand for it. The work that I do has led me to run for office. I launched my campaign for the Virginia House of Delegates so that I could bring a voice to our children, because these are our children. I decided to run for office because every day the news seemed to get worse. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Every day I wanted to look away, thinking that at some point it's going to get better. Every day thinking that someone was going to put a stop to this. And then realizing that with the change, I had to bring the change myself. You are here because you know what is happening is wrong. You are here because you decided to stand in solidarity with these children to protest against the inhumane treatment. You are here because you believe families belong together. We know this is wrong. We refuse to allow this to continue. And from here forward, we know now that the time for us to decide how this story ends. Please look at the names. Juan, 16, Carlos, 16, Darlin, 10, Felipe, 8, Jocelyn, 7, Wilmer, 2, and Marie, 20 months old. These are the children that have died in our care. We were responsible for them. Dozens of pediatricians have offered to help. They are being turned away. There are organizations from around the country who are offering water and clothes and diapers, and they are being turned away. Prisoners, murderers, those on death row have more rights than these innocent children. This is a humanitarian crisis. Generations to come will look upon us and see these days as a dark stain on our history. Every single person here tonight bears the responsibility to take action, and I call you to action tonight. Please stand against these crimes against humanity. Talk to your representatives, go to their meetings, go to rallies, speak up. But I want you to ask the representatives, how many more children need to die before you work to stop this? What is the number of dead kids that will move you to action? Tell them that you will not stand for caging children in the name of our country. Don't give up. We cannot stop until the last child is out and the gates are closed. Demand that we close the camps. I am Jess Foster. I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm a lawyer. I am running for the House of Delegates. I am a fighter, and I will not be silent. Together we can foster change. Please act now.
these children who died in the border between Mexico and the United States. Everybody knows what happened. The image that we got in our mind, we are heartbroken. We want to say very clear to this country, to all the politics, and to President Donald Trump and his government. We are heartbroken. We can't believe the image when we saw that father and her baby in the water. When we have seen recently an image that a father and a child that cut their throat, okay, in the border. We see children, they are drinking water from these camps, from the toilet, who are being abused sexually, mentally and physical. We know what is going on. We have to hold President Donald Trump responsible. And I don't have no problem to tell him the truth. Because that's what he deserves. He's a father and he doesn't understand that in our countries in Central America, people are dying.
Immigrants who need to be heard. And I ask, and while I do love the allies here, I love you guys for being here. I ask of you what you can do. So what can you do? Is you can vote every year. In Virginia, we have elections every year. Make sure to vote. And also, keep your elected officials accountable. Ask them to put an end to the for-profit detention system, to abolish ICE, and to advocate for driver's licenses for all in Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you. So I also want to share a story of one of our youngest members, Melvin. He is 1 year old. He just came from Honduras a few months ago. He was in the ice boxes where they keep the children. And he was left there for several months. His mom, when they were finally released, he was out with pneumonia. He had to be treated here in Richmond because they left him in those inhumane conditions. So I want to leave you guys with two questions. Why do they see children as criminals? And why do they refuse to call us anything other than human? They keep calling us aliens and illegals. We are human.
Here. I'm a teacher at Prince William County Schools. We all know that kids need books, and they need love, and they need food. And I fight every day for our kids to have adequate education at Prince William. And I'm a mom too, and I have 3 boys. And when they are scared, they need me. So I'm here today, and I was here yesterday, and we all were here. We've been fighting. And I stand with my friends here because tomorrow we'll be here, and we're running for office to help stop this. So the damage that's being done to these kids today is forever. And we must remember that every day. This November, next November, and from evermore, hold everyone accountable for our kids.
Greetings, peace. My name is Liza. I am also a teacher. I work in Fairfax County. And this year, I just want to share a very short story. This year, before school started, we were taken aside, those of us where we were going to have this particular student, and we were told that his family had finally gotten to this country. They had relatives in the area, and the boy had seen unspeakable things, gang violence. His uncle was murdered in front of him, and they weren't sure if he was going to be okay. And they were warning us because they wanted us to make sure that if we saw anything, we would be able to at least say something to get some help. The good news is, he did come to a loving family. He was able to come to a safe home in Northern Virginia. And he's actually thriving. And I know his story is not the one that we get to hear in the news. But this is why we have to care. We have to care because children need a place to thrive. They need a loving, caring society, family, friends, country, school to take care of them. I'm here today because for the same reason most of you are. And we were all talking just a moment ago about how this is our bubble. These are our friends. We all care. So I think what we need to do now is get out and make sure our neighbors know some of these stories and get out and make sure that we help mobilize and motivate so that others can do this work with us. Because it isn't going to change if only this many show up, right? But if we each talk to 10 of our neighbors and 10 of our friends and so on, we can affect change. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Franklin, and I'm the incoming supervisor for the Woodbridge District. And before coming to this event, I was actually at an event of CASA. It was a panel discussion with a group of immigrant youth. A bunch of students, mostly 16, 17-year-olds. And the last question that was asked to us was, what advice would you give to these students? And what I said to them was, I don't know what it feels like to be an immigrant recently that has come to this country, right? But what I told them was, in life you have challenges and you have opportunities. And I told them that this country has a lot of challenges, but you have to minimize war-torn countries where they can come from, facing gang violence, where they come from, food insecurity, you name it. Came to this country for a better life, seeking asylum. 2 of those students we were able to help. One of those students we were not. His name was Pedro. Pedro had immigrated here from El Salvador. And with Pedro, one day he was going home from school, was literally arrested after he got off the school bus. He was 18 years old, and he was taken into ICE custody. And it was our job in our congressional office to speak with the Department of Homeland Security, to talk to ICE, and to beg them to please let this student stay with his family here in America. They told us no. They said there was nothing they can do, all because of a paperwork violation that his lawyers had made. He's now deported back to El Salvador, but before he was deported, my boss was able to go down and speak with him. He lost a lot of weight, he had become depressed, he was sick, he didn't want to leave, he didn't want to eat, and he was refusing to speak or say anything. That was his protest. It's people like Pedro that deserves to be here. Who knows what's happened to Pedro at this point? We don't know. He's back in El Salvador, we haven't been able to keep in touch. But that's a shame. This is America. This is our country. It was founded with immigrants. That's the beauty of this country. That's the beauty of Prince William County. And it's a shame that we're still fighting to be inclusive of everyone. We will have an election coming up in November, and that will be an easy way to determine what type of community we want to have. Do we want to stand with CASA? Do we want to stand with our immigrant communities? Do we really want to fight for those that have the least? I think the answer is yes. We encourage you to not only come today, but make phone calls tomorrow, write in your representative, and for those of us that are elected, hold us accountable. Ask us what we have done lately for immigrant communities. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann Wheeler, and I am nervous getting up there and speaking sort of off the cuff. I'm not used to doing that, but I feel compelled to do that because I keep thinking, you know, as I keep hearing things that go on, and I was thinking about tonight, what am I going to tell my grandchildren when I have them? That what was I doing when all this went on? You know, what am I going to say? I'm going to say, oh, I just sat back and I didn't do anything. Oh, it was somebody else's problem. And I don't want to be one of those people who just sat back and didn't do anything, which is why I'm here tonight to support this vigil. You know, For me, I listen to Oliver read those letters, and it makes me want to cry inside. It's almost too hard to hear, the stories, thinking that this is how, as Americans, we're treating people. This wasn't the country that I grew up in, and I don't know really what has happened. But the idea that we can absolutely treat people inhumanely and not as human beings and not with dignity and grace and love, I don't understand. And so for me, it's a point where I've gotten to say, it's enough. I've had enough. I can't really change the world. We can come together as a community and try to change, tonight and raise awareness. But I also believe that we can change Prince William County. For a while now, I've been so upset with the things in the news that all I want to do is make my little section of the world a good place to live and be inclusive and welcoming, and where everyone is welcome and everyone does well and has opportunity. So in a lot of ways, that's what I focus on, and that happen. And I believe together we can do that because we do live in a wonderful place that can be together as a community. So I'm glad to be here tonight. When my grandkids say, "What did you do?" I can say, "I tried to, help my little piece of the world." Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Danny Funderburg. I'm running for the Prince William County Board of Supervisors for the Gainesville Magistrate. Normally, I do also tend to speak off the cuff here. This is a very important issue, and I want to make sure that I communicated my message as sharply and as cleanly as possible. So I did take some notes. So excuse me for referring to my notes, but I did want to make sure that we got the message across the way that it needed to. So I'm going to ask you to take a little journey with me. Imagine that you are born in a place where the limits of what you can and cannot do are decided by people who are not part of your family. Imagine that you are born in a place where the limits of what you can and cannot do are decided by people who are not part of your family. Imagine that you are born in a place where socially you are worth less than human. Imagine that you are born in a place where economically your value relies solely on what you can get when you are ransomed for your freedom. Imagine that you are growing up in a place where there is no hope of equality, where there is no right or even a privilege to experience safety. It simply doesn't exist. Imagine living in a place where your best hope, your best solution is to leave. Imagine leaving that place, knowing that you are going to have to travel hundreds of miles under extremely difficult and dangerous situations, where you are going to be pursued by gangs of people, where you cannot even trust the people who look like you to help take care of you. Imagine coming to a place where the best that you can hope for is still not to be treated as a human. Where you could still be taken advantage of on a daily basis. And where free is not free. Imagine that this is your life. Imagine that this is your life in Virginia in 1760. Imagine that this is your life in Virginia in 1960, as you are fighting for your civil rights. Imagine this is your life in Virginia in 1860, where you're fighting for your freedom. Imagine this is your life in Virginia in 1976, where you are fighting for the equal rights of women. Imagine this is your life in 2016, where you're still fighting for the equal rights of women, and you are still fighting for the right to love the person you love and to live with that person in a free and open environment. We have been down this road before. Immigration is not the problem. Immigrants are not the problem. For over 400 years, immigrants have been building this nation. For over 240 years, immigrants have been trying to carve out a place for our politicians to create a more free and open environment, to create a more perfect union. Every wave of immigrants that have come to this shore have brought something unique and different with them, and we are better off because of it. The English, the Irish, the Europeans, the Asians, the Indians, the Jews, the Arabs, the Muslims, you name it, whatever group has come to this shore has made us a better nation because of their presence here. Immigration is not the problem. Democracy can handle immigration. A free and open society can handle immigration. Immigration is not the problem. The problem is the small-minded fear felt by some people, because if you look different than I do, or if you think different than I do, that makes me afraid, and I need you to do something about that. I need you to leave. That is the problem. The problem is small-minded greed, which says, hey, I was here first. I got what I want, but what I don't want is you sharing it with me, so you need to leave and go find it someplace else. That is the problem. We can do better. We can work together to resolve this issue. Wake up, America. Wake up. Prince William County.
Also for the Prince William County Board of Supervisors as chairman, I'm running as an independent. It's sad to be here today for this event. This should not be happening in the 21st century. I thought we had left this all a long time ago. Unfortunately not. A lot of the things that Danny said earlier, if I have lived through it. Being an immigrant who came to this country almost 20 years ago, I know what it feels like to be an immigrant and to be abused. Do you be used? I come from a place called Kashmir, the most beautiful place on the earth, in the northern part of Himalaya, India, in the middle of the Himalayas. It's a valley that's surrounded by Himalayan mountains all around, in the middle. You can just imagine. I came to the United States in 1992. After the disturbance started in Kashmir, where youth were basically rounded up by the army and taken out to the camps tortured, killed, and brought back to their families that these were killed in encountering the border. Most of my friends died. I was pushed out of my family as the only son of my parents. At the age of 18, I was pushed out to leave because my family couldn't afford it. Our family business was a silk manufacturing. We were one of the number 2 in the state after the government. So my family could afford it, but there are many of my friends who could not. They ended up in debt within a year after I had left. I went to southern India where I made my passport because Kashmir did not even get a passport. We were not allowed to leave either. When I came to the United States, my first thing was to find a lawyer to get my immigration status and seek an asylum. When I went through that process for the next 10 years, I did not get to see my parents. But along the way, those 10 years, I had to clean dog poop at times. Coming from a family, coming from a business background, who used to have his pockets filled with money and go dispose of any what you want. And here, I have not a single penny to myself. My first week's check in New York City was $75. And just imagine living in New York City, $75, what are you going to do with it? Pay your rent, eat the food, or pay the subway to get to work? So somewhere I had to cut, and the cut was in food. I could not afford to eat. I could not afford to cut on my subway token because I could not get to work that was paying me. I could not afford to cut on my rent because I'll be on the street. My father called me in 1995. He said, "Why don't you come back? We have everything in the family. You don't need to worry." There were 2 things. If I came back, I'll be dead. Number 2, I had taken a challenge. And I told my dad, if I am successful, you will see me again. If not, today you should consider your son is dead. And I did not see my father for the next 10 years. Yes, it was not an easy journey. I'm a father of 6 kids. Married for 21 years. My oldest one is 19, my youngest one is my daughter, 18 months old. When I go to New York City today to take my kids for a trip to enjoy New York City, I look at those buildings where I used to work as a security guard out in the middle of the night in cold and heat. I have tears coming down my eyes. I look at what's happening at the Texas border. It's not too far from my heart. I feel the pain. I cannot even imagine the parent who's seeing his son or daughter being snatched from them in the middle of the night. Many of us here are parents. Just imagine if your son or daughter has a fever at night, how crazy you get by getting up and trying to figure out how to take care of it. Now imagine if you don't know what the son and daughter is doing on the other side and where it is it even alive or not? The problem is not the Texas border. The problem goes way beyond. We have been a country for too long who has created these situations in other countries. Our capitalistic hunger is starving nations across the world. In other parts of the world and feeling, oh my God, they're living in tents. We have now become complacent where we hear a school shooting is happening. Oh, one more shooting happened. What is happening to us as a nation? Where are we going? Is this the America our forefathers dreamed of? Is this the country we want to leave for our kids and grandkids? What are we going to tell them? When I decided to run for office, I told my wife, her first thing was, with my business, I'm a small business owner in the county, I'm a cybersecurity consultant. She said, I hardly see you now, I'm not going to get to see you at all. I said, sweetheart,
think about it this way. If everybody's going to be selfish and going to think about themselves only, what is going to happen to our country? If I'm going to think that I'm not going to have time with my kids, what am I going to tell my kids tomorrow when they tell Daddy you had an opportunity to do something right and you did not do? We have an opportunity to change, and we need to make that change today. We are reacting today. Let's start acting from now onwards. Thank you. God bless America.
So we are here on a sad occasion tonight. I'm happy to see us here. I'm happy to see us stepping out and being here. Nelson Mandela said on one occasion that history will judge us by the ways in which we make differences in the everyday lives of our children. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir tonight when I tell you that right now in America, history is giving us an F. We have been found guilty by the way that we are treating our children today. And it's heartbreaking. As I was listening to Oliver, I had a breakdown listening to those stories of the children. And although I haven't been an immigrant, I know what it means to be a child who is abused, who is alone, who is frightened, and who doesn't know who's gonna come and save them or if anybody cares to come and save them. So as heartbroken as I am also grateful because I realize that there's hope. And the reason I know that there's hope is because all of you are the hope. You are the hope for those children whose voices are not being heard. You are the hope. So I'm grateful that we have hope for tomorrow and that this is not the end for us. Because you know what? It's been said, this is not the first time in this country that we've separated families. This is not the first time in this country that we've used children as pawns in our political games of chess. But every time we tried to do that, change has come because somebody stood up and said, not today, not in my country, I will not allow that. And I'll be real brief. I just want to say this to you. You guys are more powerful than you will ever imagine. Because when we gather in places like this, that is power. And when we march up and down the roads in downtown Richmond, headed to the Capitol, that is power. And when we stand at the gates on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, that is power. But the greatest power is when we storm the ballot boxes this November and next November. And so I want you to remember this November and November when we storm the ballot box. That is our greatest power. Because power doesn't concede anything. So they're not going to give it to us, we're going to go and take it.
About the fact that my family were immigrants too. In 1678, my 8 times great-grandfather Thomas Leeds came to this country because in England, Quakers were being killed. And my family were Quakers. And my family has lived here ever since. And we have enjoyed the privileges and blessings of living in the United States of America. And what that does is that makes me privileged. And the question is, how am I going to deal with my privilege? There are so many people who are struggling, who are coming from places like Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala. And they're coming for the same reason that my 8 times great-grandfather came here. Because they need safe harbor. And the law says that if you are seeking asylum, you are not illegal. You are not here illegally. But this president, who wouldn't know the law if it hit him in the face, seems to think that it's okay to take children from their parents and put them in cages and detain them indefinitely. And so what do I do with that privilege that I have? And I want to challenge everybody because yes, we're going to go out and vote, but there are so many people
that don't vote because they don't know what it is. They don't know who's running. They don't know whether or not they've changed their address or they're still registered or for whatever reason. And the only way we're going to get people of goodwill to come out and vote is by going and knocking on their doors. It's by making phone calls. It's by going to postcard events and writing postcards to people. And there are indivisible groups all in this building right now who have opportunities for people to canvass, to use postcards, to make phone calls. And I want to challenge the people of privilege, particularly, to use that privilege, to take it and use it for good, to call people and get them to the polls, to register voters, to canvass. We won't make you canvass if you don't know how. This lady over here, Suzanne, is holding canvass trainings all throughout the month of July. And there are postcard groups who are able and willing to have postcard events on Thursdays in the morning. And in Fauquier, we have postcard happy hours every other Wednesday. And so Andrea Martins is in the back there, and if you'd like to sign up for that, go and talk to her, go talk to Suzanne, or go talk to the postcard group by the Right Now sign. You're needed. You're not going to go, you're not going to be forgotten, but we need to let the people who need us not be forgotten either. Thank you.
District for the Board of County Supervisors, and I'm extremely happy to be with you this evening. Thank you, thank you. When my friends told me about what was going to take place this evening and invited me to come, I thought I wouldn't want to be any place other than right here with you. I want to talk about something that can be intangible. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but it's really real as it appeals to our wonderful person that lives at 1600 Pennsylvania. It applies to, I said wonderful, I know what I said. It applies to something that he is creating by his decision this week. One of my passions is mental health. And mental health goes across the board when you talk about community. One of the pieces of mental health is called PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome. Y'all know what I'm talking about? When that wonderful decision was made this week, that created an opportunity for PTSD. PTSD is merely trauma. Trauma. And that can happen not just in the military, that can happen across the board. And so when we talk about not protecting people from their right to come to our country and live in a community, that creates an opportunity for PTSD, a mental health disorder. One of the things that I'm running on for the County Board of Supervisors is mental health. Because I understand when you separate people from their families, that creates trauma. You separate them from love. You separate them from knowing how to grow up in a protected environment. And so, that's one of the reasons why I'm running. Because I want to make sure that our community is protected. Protected at all costs. So, I want you to make sure that I'm a part of the Board of County Supervisors. Can you do that for me?
Yes. Yeah.
Because we live in a community that deserves to be protected at any cost. And the way we do that is protecting our minds. The way we do that is by protecting our minds. So when you talk about separating children and separating families, that's not protecting families. So on November 5th, join me. I'll be on the eastern side of the county, running for office in the Potomac District. But once I'm in the seat, I'll be working across the dais for the Board of County Supervisors, making sure that PTSD does not visit our community. Thank you.
Is that my son's mother? Is that my son's brother and sister? And I think of what they had to do to get here. Do you think they chose this? Do you think they chose to walk across the deserts? To maybe even give their child to a coyote? Because that was better than staying there. When I was down there, we had to stay in District 10, and we pretty much had a guard walk with us the whole way. Now it's so bad we can't go. I promised my son when he was 18 that we would go and try and find her because we know her name, we know where she was living. But now we can't. He's 14, maybe in 4 years, but it's just too dangerous right now. And they're trying to flee, and they're trying to come to the one place where that woman in the harbor raises up her hand and say, bring me, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry. And so they come with full hope, and they run into a wall. Maybe not a real wall, but a wall of anger and a wall of hate. And I think it could have been my son. Could have been his brothers and sisters. So it's personal for a lot of people in America. Because every day that plane would go down empty-handed, and every day it would come back full with more babies in them. They called it the baby plane. Every day, 250 people full of armed babies. So it's not just the Browns, it's us too. We have family down there. I have family down there, and I don't know what's happened to them, and I don't know if they're there. I don't even know how to find them. We lived overseas for a while when Sandy Hook happened. We were in Australia, and that was the first time I was ever embarrassed to be American because all my Australian friends were saying, what are you doing? What is your country doing? And now, look what we're doing. Look what we're doing. We're having crimes against humanity. So we have to stand up for this. We have to fight for this. And we have to know that those people are there out of love. And we have to welcome them. So do what you can. Do what you can. Make your phone calls. Like we said, get out and protest. But this has to stop. Stop for all the children. And I'll leave you with this from one word, from the man, when I always knew what to do. Let the little children come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God is theirs. Thank you.
This event coming up, it has been on my mind all day, and it's brought up things that I was surprised at. And it was something that happened last year, and I want to share it with you, but I got to give you just a little bit of context. I'm Terry L'Italian, but my mother's name was Gertrude Schultz. She's no longer with us, but her baby brother is, and he had his 90th birthday last year, excuse me. And my Uncle Freddie is an amazing man. When he was a very young, naive, underage teenager, he, for what he thought were the right reasons, actually joined the German army. Shortly after that, and he realized what he was signing up for, he defected from the German army, something that I can't imagine how much bravery it took, because he would have been executed on the spot had he been caught. And he came home in time to find out that my grandfather, his father, who was a resistor, was not his lover. So with that context, we all went over to Germany last year to celebrate Freddie's birthday. And as part of that trip, because we're a family that never ever wants to forget history, we went to Munich, and we went to Dachau. And I can't express what going to Dachau is like. It hits you in your bones in a way you never expected. And when we were in Munich, we did a tour with a historian to learn really what happened at the beginning of the horrors that beset Europe. And in that tour, the guide made a statement, and it was a moment where, it was a walking tour, so it was a moment where everybody just sort of stopped breathing. And he said, Mark Twain is attributed with a quote that says, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And I thought it was a very powerful quote, and it really stuck with me. What I didn't expect was that I would see it happen a year later in America. And because things are not quite the same, people like to discount it. But just remember, history may not repeat itself, but it rhymes. And this is one poem we need to stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I won't be much longer, I promise. Today, I also wanted to say, I speak also not as a mother, of course, but also as a Christian and as a pro-life advocate. And when I say pro-life, I mean for the whole life. If we care for the life of children before they're born, we must care for children after birth and beyond as well. And their families too, their mothers and fathers. Not neglect them once you're born. You cannot call yourself a Christian or a pro-life and say idly by, or even we're supporting this inhumane treatments. We're subjecting these innocent souls. Like a wonderful speaker before me shared that even Jesus himself said, let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. Do not believe I'm also an immigrant from Italy, and I never got a treatment or the looks that the people of color from those countries get. It's not, I hear, oh, it's different. It's different for you. Well, I have a job here. Didn't I take one of your jobs? Well, I'm white, so I don't get that treatment. So I just wanted to say, this is not about jobs. It's about racial discrimination, amongst many other things. So we need to support all immigrants, not just white immigrants like me. And I just want to say, don't believe in the narrative of opposition and keep fighting the good fight. We're obviously here together, and America is better than this. I believe there's more good people in the world than bad people. Thank you.
Good evening, fellow activists. Thank you. My name is Kenny Bodie, and I am a candidate running for office. I'm running for the Prince William County Board of Supervisors for the Occoquan District. But I'm not going to talk to you as a candidate running for office. I'm going to talk to you as a Virginian, as an American, as someone who's a descendant of enslaved Africans who were brought here over 200 years ago. The reason why I point that out is because no matter where you come from, where your family lineage is, we are all immigrants at some point in time. Not a single person in this area right now, their family was not originally from here. Even the Native Americans traveled across a long terrain thousands of years ago to come here. So for anyone to claim that this is their land and not someone else's is preposterous. But more to the point, we currently have children in cages. We have families that are being torn apart. We have people who are seeking asylum, seeking safety from death, despair, poverty, and misery. They're then being separated, torn apart, and keep being kept in cages like my ancestors were, like some of your ancestors were. There's no excuse. There's no reason for that. At the end of the day, I live my life by three core issues when it comes to this. One, no human being is illegal. Number two, we have to care for each other as human beings and treat each other with the kind of respect that we want to be treated with. And three, and most importantly, we need to live each and every day as if it's our last. And the reason why I say that is because when you decide to have your last moments and you look back on your life, how do you want to remember that life? Do you want to remember that life as someone who cared for each other, someone who looked back and saw people, and someone saw you as someone who actually gave and provided, lifted people up instead of pushed them down? Or do you want to live a life where you look back and think, I did everything I could for myself? I can't live that second way. I have dedicated my life to living for other people, especially for my mom that I lost 3 years ago. And I hope that all of you take this opportunity to reflect on the fact that there's a lot of people here who can show up, but there's a lot of people who can't. There's a lot of people who are kept in cages, a lot of people who can't come to events like this. And we have to keep fighting, not only for the people that show up, but for the people that can't, and the people that never will be able to. Again, I'm Kenny Bodie, and thank you for your time.
First Latina running for Virginia Senate, and thank you. And it's not been easy. Today, out of respect of my Latin American brothers, I'm gonna talk in Spanish, and I hope you forgive me, but I wanna make sure that this speech goes to them, to the kids that are in jail right now, to whoever is able to talk. I want to be their voice. So I hope you forgive me today for speaking in Spanish. I will try to do my best for telling you later on what I was trying to say. My speech is about the wall. And I'm going to call everyone to break it. Compañeros y compañeras latinoamericanos, el día de hoy estamos reunidos para hablar de una situación extrema, para comenzar una revolución política y social latinoamericana. Y aunque puede sonar muy extremo, les voy a hablar de lo que es extremo. Extremo es tener niños en jaulas. Extremo es tener personas que entran a algo que se llama la nevera, donde los ponen a desinfectar. Extremo es tener esos padres muriendo en el río. Extremo es tener personas que trabajan por tener una mejor vida y son arrestados y son tratados como criminales. Eso es extremo. ¿Hasta cuándo? ¿Hasta cuándo nosotros vamos a permitir que se nos abuse? ¿Hasta cuándo vamos a permitir que nuestros derechos sean estropeados? Mi nombre es Jasmine Moa Barrientos y yo fui en contra de un establecimiento que fue el FBI en el año 2016. Y no tuve miedo. Y espero lo mismo de mis compañeros latinoamericanos. Hoy vamos a hablar en serio. Today I want to speak something in very serious matter. I want to speak about those children that are sitting in those jails. But I don't want to just talk about the story of those children. I want people that really is ready to fight with me. I am training people. The reason that I'm here right now is not as a candidate. The reason that I'm here is to start recruiting people who is willing to make that change. Because we have in power right now Donald Trump, a demon that is killing angels. And that cannot be our obscure America. With the rhetoric that he's saying, that he's going, there you are, Trump is coming. Let's wait. I really want to make sure that he stops. Thank you.
No te muevas tanto.
I am very lucky, guys. I'm lucky to have you all listening to me. Not just because I want to be the voice of the Latin Americans, because I want to make a difference. I came here for a better America, and the neighbors were wonderful people like you. Now we're living in an obscure America, an America with racism, and we can't tolerate that. We are here for making a different America. It's not about make America great again, because America has always been great. Now it's being divided by the wall, but it doesn't matter because we Latin American people will break that wall even with their bodies because we want to say to our kids, we want to say to our children, we fight, we make it happen, we make the difference. Today, I have volunteers who are going to start recruiting people to start training, and I promise to you that at least I'm going to be the person of change. I will be that person that at least is going to be starting training those leaders, those community leaders, those activists. We need them empowered. We need to start making sure that the right kind of people is taking over control. And we need to stop the people that is corrupted. We need to stop the corruption that is happening in our country. Because this is our country. Regardless if I came from Sur, from South, from North, from Central America, America belongs to us. And our blood runs America. Que vivan los latinoamericanos, que vivan los Estados Unidos de América. Gracias. I want to introduce my daughter, a Latina. She's from NAWCP, Jessica Peru.
Arriba, mano. Al medio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jessica Peru. I'm a member of NACP and an activist. Today, I'd like to speak about a story that remains with me till this day. I was walking into my classroom one day when I saw a student I'd never noticed much until now. What caught my attention was that he was crying, trying to hide back his tears. I assumed it was because his parents had to leave him at school, and he just felt a little homesick. But to my surprise, it was nothing like I thought. It was far worse. His parents weren't just leaving him for a few hours. They were leaving him forever. Yes, Manuel was an illegal immigrant who was stripped away from his parents, to no fault of their own, and taken away by ICE. He was left to be taken care of by his sister, which was the only family member he had left. I tried to give some sort of advice, but nothing came out. I knew that nothing can take away the pain of a child, losing the most important and essential figure in his life, losing the one who brought him into this world, who raised and cared for him for all those years. Only to someday be taken away. It wasn't fair, and all I could do was try to comfort him. I went to my mother that day and I told her everything, but there was nothing we could do about it. By that moment, his parents were already gone. The reason why I'm telling you this is because many illegal immigrants aren't here to steal our jobs or any of those rumors that have been being spread around. They're here to have an opportunity to bring their children into this world and to give them a better life. But yet nowadays, we can't see that because they're treated as criminals, being put into conservation camps. And that isn't fair for them. We don't deserve this. And Trump says that he's trying to make America great again, but this isn't the greatness. Being torn apart from your family, from the one that has raised you, the one that cared for you before anyone else. That isn't great. That's cruel. And no one deserves to be put through that, especially young, innocent children that's being treated this way because of their ethnicity, the place that they were born in, and their background. So today, I want to tell you that it's not over. We still have the opportunity to fight, to make the world a better place, to be the voice for the people that cannot speak today, to be the voice for people that are caged in conservation camps. They deserve better, and we can give that to them. If we start to fight for their freedom. if we can learn from our past and be better. Thank you.
This is Nelson Figueroa. I'm an attorney, I'm an immigration attorney. I don't like podiums, so please forgive me about that. I like to be with the people. I'm going to let everybody else talk about what's happening. I want to talk about what's going to happen. So we know that it's been promised that there's going to be some massive raids, okay? What I want to talk about is what rights do the people have in order to fight those raids, if any. Now I want to start, I give classes in a master's degree class, and sometimes when I ask my students things, they look at me and they look like they know it, but when I do the quiz or something, they fail. So I'm going to ask this question. Can ICE come into your home when you are here without documentation? Yes or no, and why? No. Okay, so that's a trick question. It depends. It depends. So here's the trick that ICE use. There's 3 documents that ICE can give you. 3. 2 of them say arrest warrant. So in Spanish, orden de arresto. Okay, 2 of those. Those are signed by any ICE officer. An ICE officer is a federal employee, but he is not a federal judge. So that document, those 2 documents that he might give you, those documents do not allow them to go inside your car, inside your home, or inside the private part of an open space. Open space where people go sit and eat, ICE can go and detain you there. But if you go into the back of that restaurant, the owner of the restaurant, and can I use your name? Carmen. So let's say Carmen is the owner of Krispy Kremes, right? I'm sorry, this is not an endorsement of Krispy Kreme. You see, I'm losing weight, so it's not an endorsement. But, so she goes in and they go in and the ICE comes in and the person, Carmen, tells them, oh, you can't go into the area where they make the donuts. So literally, the person can just stand right there, okay? Stand right there where they're making the donuts. But because that is not a public place, okay? Difference, right? Public place, you come in where you pay. Public place is not where they go and make the donuts. So they cannot go in there. I work for 5 embassies. I'm the advisor of a couple of ambassadors. I'm constantly talking about these issues. And people to this day, sometimes they say, oh, ICE can go in. No. So out of those 3 documents, we talked about that 2, right? Remember those 2? What does it say? You see my students, same as my students. What did he say? Arrest warrant, right. So the arrest warrant is not good for a house, a car, or a private space in a business. Now, there's a 3rd document. There's a 3rd document. It says United States District Court. Now we have to watch out. My grandfather, bless his soul, used to say, the devil is not the devil because it's the devil. The devil is the devil because he knows how to play the game. Okay? So what you got to look at in this document, even though they give you this document, okay, is the 3rd one, it has to have some formalities. Formality number 1, you said Hart, right? So it says here, Nelson, but they go to Carmen's house. So do you think the document is good? No. It has to be perfect. Again, perfect. In Spanish, perfecto. Del verbo está perfectamente bien. Okay? So it's perfect. Number 2, the address says 7011, but there they wrote 7011A. Is the document good? No, because it's not perfect. Now, the last thing, well, there's 2 more things. One of the other things that they do is the signature of a judge. So it has to be a judge. And I'm running out of time, so forgive me. So anyway, there has to be the signature of a judge. What sometimes they do is they give you the document without the signature. And people don't realize it. So there has to be one more thing, a date. A date. So that date, now let's see if it says today is what, the 12th, right? If the date there says the 13th, do you think the document is good? No, it's not good. So anyway, in summary, pass that information to the people you know. There's 4 things that the document has to have. It has to have a correct name. It has to have an address. It has to have the judge's signature, and it has to have a date, which is today or in the past, not in the future. Okay. So with this, I'm going to pass this around so everybody has an example of this. If you have any questions, feel free. My information is here. But I'm sorry. This is information that a lot of people are afraid of. They don't have to open the door. They have to pass it under the door, or they can lower the window of the car, and then they can pass it through the window. But if they have that document that says arrest warrant, they can tell the person, thank you for bringing the arrest warrant. We appreciate it. We'll use it as toilet paper. That's the best thing that it's good for. And we say thank you very much. If the document, they give it to you with a future date, right? So they give it to you on the 13th. You once again say thank you for coming. We'll be here for you tomorrow when you come here. This document is not good. And then you pick up everything just like you can and you leave. Okay? So anyway, with this in mind, I just want to say one last thing. What's happening right now, it's not fair. I've been working, I actually was 8 days in intensive care fighting this and another thing with when they put Iraq on the terrorist list. So I know what we go through with this. And I see this. And I work daily with people that come and cross this. If today is hot, imagine that desert over there. And you guys, everyone here, me as an attorney, I can do little, but if all you guys have your voice and raise it, you will be that beacon that they need. Because they cannot scream from where they are, but we can scream from here. Anyway, with this, Nelson, my name again, Nelson Figueroa, and hopefully, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. My phone number is there. Reach out to us, and we're ready to help you whatever we can, okay? Anyway, thank you. Who's next?
Like someone who's better than you. My name is Liza Stevens. I'm a longtime resident of the city of Manassas. I am running for an office, but that's irrelevant. Who I am and what I'm doing doesn't mean anything tonight. I've been thinking about what I would say tonight, and I couldn't figure out what to say, because I knew that everything that needed to be said would already be said by the time I got up here. So, I'm going to do what my friend Marilyn always says. She always says, have an ask. So I have 3 asks for you tonight. The first ask is that most of you have a silver ribbon. As you tuck your children in bed tonight, as you tuck your grandchildren in bed tonight, as you go to bed tonight, think about what you're sleeping with. And then think about what the children at the border are sleeping with. They are sleeping with Mylar blankets on the floor. You and I have beds, in bedrooms, in homes. We have comforters, we have blankets, we have sheets. We have air conditioning, windows that can open. The children at the border, they have none. They have Mylar blankets. You may also have noticed that I tried to talk to every child here tonight and tell them that we have someone here who's giving free Slurpee coupons. When you take your child to 7-Eleven to get that coupon, to get that Slurpee, remember all the children at the border, all the children in camps throughout the country who cannot engage in that simple act we take for granted. That's what we need to remember as we go through our days. Put this ribbon somewhere where you won't forget it. And every time you look at it, think about what you have and what the families at the border do not have. What the children who've been separated from their parents do not have. That's what I'm asking of you. But I'm going to give you one final ask. When you go home tonight, Google the UN rights on humans. Google that document. It was written in
For many of our elected representatives, what we should be about. We are our brothers and sisters' keepers. That is fundamental to who we are. When people look at the United States, they look at us as the greatest nation on earth. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not. We are not when this occurs, when we allow this to occur. We can do better. We will do better together. Will we not? Yes. Will we do better? Yes, we will. Thank you so much.
I'm a Washington, D.C. civil rights, human rights lawyer, but I live in Prince William County, where most of my life is, and it means more and more to me every day. I wanted to thank all of the organizers, Elisabet and Suzanne and all of their committee, put this all together. Can we give them all a big round of applause? And as I understand it, there's going to be a interfaith service after this. We're all looking forward to that. Elisabet asked me to talk about something else that's very personal in my life. My mother-in-law and father-in-law spent 6 years in Hitler's concentration camps and slave labor camps from 1938 to 1945 in World War II. And in my opinion, and in the opinion of many of my friends and colleagues, what's going on now on the border in Texas and in Florida and in Arizona is every bit as much about concentration camps and the extermination of innocent civilians as anything that happened in the Holocaust. 12 million citizens died in Hitler's concentration camps. 6 million Jews, among whom were my father-in-law, Jack, and my mother-in-law, Carol. But the other 6 million included Catholics and members of the LGBTQ community, and mentally disabled and physically disabled people, and of course, gypsies, other groups that were being discriminated against, not because of who they were, but because of their religion or the color of their skin, their nationality, and so forth. Concentration camps have been with us throughout human history for thousands of years. And they aren't only those institutions that involve mass murder. There have been these horrible deaths by these children on this sign here, who we honor today. And to me, that's mass deaths. I don't differentiate between that and 12 million in the sense that what's happening today, we thought we had learned by entering into World War II and defeating the Nazis and so forth, that this was going to be something that we had risen to be a beacon of hope and human rights in the world. But ever since Trump was elected, this nonsense about making America great again is a lie and a fraud, because what he really stands for, obviously, in the opinion of many of us, is the same kind of impulses that drove Hitler to kill so many innocent millions of people all those years ago. Elisabet asked me to try to summarize everything that everybody had said, and I've got 30 pages of notes. But I wrote down some of the things that I think what happened in the Holocaust in World War II and the similarities to what's happening to our brothers and sisters from the Triangle in South America and Mexico, because it's the same stuff.
Many of my constituents here today, thank you so much. We welcome Fauquier County to Prince William County today. Thank you for joining us on this great cause that we're fighting today. So, I don't think it's a secret that I am an immigrant myself, and I was elected as the first female immigrant to the Virginia Assembly 2 years ago. And when I look at these families that are crossing the border, I came to this country as a single mother with my daughter Pamela, who is gonna turn 28 years old today. I can stop thinking about myself, being an immigrant to this country, leaving everything behind, my family, career, property, to start over from zero. And I just can't imagine what it would mean to me if they would have taken my child away from me when I was coming to this country. It's very personal because nobody understands what it is like to start over from this country. And I just want to make a show of hands so we know. Raise your hand if you are an immigrant. Keep it up, okay? Raise your hand if your parents were immigrants to this country. Raise your hand if your grandparents were immigrants to this country. Give it up. Raise your hand if your great-grandparents were immigrants to this country. Look around. This country was formed on immigrants. Everybody who lives in this country, their parents were immigrants before. So immigrants make America great, and we don't need the president to tell us that we need to make it greater. Dreamers who were raised in this system, went to the public education, make America great, and they do deserve a path to citizenship. As a legislator, I had the opportunity to visit one of the detention centers in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona. And it was sad to me because there is one thing that we see on the news, and we just see one race, and usually those immigrants who are crossing the border look like me. But when I went and see those detention centers, there were people from different places around the world. It was just not from Central America. It was just not from South America. I met people from Asia, different countries in Asia that were detained at the border, different countries in Europe that are looking for better opportunities in this country. I met girls who were detained at the border and they were raped in the process to get here. And they had babies. When I was visiting different classrooms, and you see children from different ages. And I remember seeing babies, and my question was, well, how did these babies cross the border? And then the people who work in the detention center told me that these girls, who were 16, 17, and were in school already, were raped in the crossing the border, and they delivered their babies here in America. So we don't talk about the horror stories that happen when you cross the border, and we don't talk about the amount of corruption that involves people crossing the border. And now let me be clear, I'm against open borders, and if there are reporters here, please write that down. But I do think that we have a law in place right now under Barack Obama, where there were 110,000 refugees who came to this country and they have their asylum application and they were eligible because they were escaping war, they were escaping violence. There were families crossing the border and they were here to save their lives and the lives of their children. Under this administration in 2018, this president had reduced those numbers to 30,000. And that's why you see the amount of people that is detained and are being separated. But the worst part is that the government was not prepared to have systems in place when they were separating the families. And now parents and children are separated. And there is no way to put them together unless they do a DNA test, and we don't have information on these people. So that is shameful, and that is not acceptable. These children, the ones who are not criminals, deserve the right to come to this country because in America, everybody is treated with dignity and respect, and that shouldn't change under this president.
Buenas noches. All right, let's try that again. Buenos noches. Good evening. My name is Josh King, and I am the Democratic nominee for sheriff. Now tonight, you guys been here for hours. Thanks for coming out tonight. It's a nice and special night. This is a night we start winning elections. We heard a lot of issues tonight, but I'm here to talk about solutions. So number one, first thing is sheriff. We're gonna get rid of that 287G program. Number two, we are gonna train our officers to be more culturally competent, so they know that we are all different, that we deserve to be treated, and our differences are our strength, not our weakness. We need to make sure that our children are safe in the streets and in the churches and in the mosques. We need to make sure that if you are differently able, that we have special needs training for all of our children and adults. We need to make sure if you're LGBTQIA that we know how to treat you, how to respect you, how to honor you, and we can do it together.
Hi, Oliver.
Hi, Oliver. Hi, Oliver.
And he said to his mother, you know, those things you showed me that were written by children that came out of prison. Can you read that to me again? And he thought for a while. He said, hey, Mom, I would like to read that at the event you're putting together. So here's Oliver.
Indivisible NOVA West Jr. I am 9 years old, the same age as many of the kids in detention centers. I am going to read statements from kids in detention centers. They took us away from our grandmother, and now we are all alone. They have not given us to our mother. We have been here for a long time. I have to take care of my little sister. She is very sad because she misses our mother and our grandmother very much. We sleep on a cement bench. There are 2 mats on the room, but the big kids sleep on the mats, so we have to sleep on the cement bench. Boy, age 8. I'm hungry here at Clint all the time. So hungry that I have woken up in the middle of the night with hunger. Sometimes I wake up from hunger at 4 a.m. Sometimes at other hours. I'm scared to ask the officials here for any more food, even though there's not enough food here for me. Boy, age 12. They told us we could only have 1 layer of clothing, and they threw away our rest of our clothes in the garbage. Boy, age 16. At Yeshua, we have not been able to shower. The toilet is out in the open in the cage. There is no door for any privacy. There is water, but no soap to wash our hands. There is no paper towels to dry our hands. There is no paper. We have not been given a toothbrush or toothpaste to brush our teeth. Boy, age 17. There are little kids here who have no one to take care of them. Not even a big brother or sister. Some kids are only 2 or 3 years old and they have no one to take care of them. Boy, age 11. I am in a room with dozens of other boys. Some have been as young as 3 or 4 years old. Some cry. Right now there is a 12-year-old who cries a lot. Others try to confront him. One of the officers makes fun of those who cry. Boy, age 17. I was apprehended with my father. The immigration agent separated me from my father right away. I was very frightened and scared. I cried. I have not seen my father again. I have a cold and cough for several days. I have not seen a doctor, and I have not been given any